So, friends, welcome to our December edition of the San Francisco Ruby Meetup. Somebody just asked if we're doing this for 2 years already, which is almost there. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, it's been a minute though. Like I don't feel like it was 2 years. It doesn't feel like that. Yeah, but yeah, thank you all for coming. I know it's a very quiet time, December, but yeah, I'm really happy to have you all here, and we'll do our talks. We'll hear from Intercom in a sec, and we'll do our standard kind of like scheduling. We'll have a break. After the break, we'll have the open mic. Then we'll have another demo live coding session. Who knows? And this is also recorded. And what am I trying to say? Oh, there is already a next meetup. So make sure you're signed up to our Luma Luma/SFRuby. The meetup in January is going to be a completely different energy. Everybody is going to be back to work, energized. And it's going to be in Persona, another cool Rails company, hosting us for the first time in San Francisco. So very excited to be there as well. But with that, let me introduce Hiten from the engineering team from Intercom, and Hiten will tell us more about engineering at Intercom and the product and the plans of the team. I hope that'd be very interesting. And finally, like, huge thank you to Intercom, everybody here, Fabian from the AV team supporting us tonight, and everybody who helped organize this. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause.
Yeah, thank you, Irina. For me personally, it's like a distinct pleasure to be able to host this event because I've been to many SF Ruby events this year at various companies, Chime, etc. We hear from some from Chime, and I've enjoyed them immensely. There's food and always interesting talks, and I actually somehow have like run into friends and keep running into the same people over and over again. So I've enjoyed that, and so it's like awesome that we get to host this. Me personally, because I like love this thing. Who's heard of Intercom? Knows what we do. Okay, good. Wow. Does anyone have a good summary? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. We build like a customer communication software. So you can think about it as, being able to handle real conversations end to end between your business and your customers. And, it's an important thing and that a place where you can like drive a lot of value. And so our company is actually maybe like 12, actually don't even know the exact, but it's, like Rails 2.3 is like, where this thing started. And so it's been around a while. And so you've probably seen the widget and maybe used the product or been exposed to it before. What we've done recently in the last few years is with this sort of AI boom, LLMs taking over, is create Fin, which is our AI agent for customer support. And we're actually looking to expand that beyond just customer support and everything related to the customer journey, which is like consideration, sales, new SDR product, and eventually even an e-commerce product coming out. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out. And then, yeah, like I noted, like we're very connected to Ruby. We love hiring people that have a lot of experience related to Rails and Ruby. We still run a giant monolith. And actually is running Rails 8, which I was pretty impressed with when I came here and looked. If you have ever upgraded between these recent versions, you'll know that non-trivial with an app that's actually serving really millions of people around the world. And so, yeah, thank you for coming. Enjoy the talks. Enjoy the pizza. There's going to be a bunch of it and the drinks. And yeah, again, thank you for coming and happy holidays.
We'll have Noel connecting to us from Chicago. Folks, you all know Noel. I think he can see us now.
I can see that I'm on the screen. Camera's pointed at you right now.
Oh my God, we can hear.
There we go. Now I can see you. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
You're about the size of a postage stamp, so I can see that there are people there in theory. So, okay. Is that the introduction I'm going to start now? Hi, everybody.
Hi. I know.
This is going to be great. Hi, my name is Noel Rappin. I am, the first thing I want to say is here's a QR code. You should, of course, immediately look at any QR code that any random person shows you. This one is going to take you to a Google form. I've been authorized to raffle off some unspecified number of free ebooks or pragmatic gift cards to the Pragmatic Swag Redbubble gift store. If you sign up there, we will figure out some way to do a raffle. So Irina, help me set that up. And thanks to Pragmatic for basically being very generous when I come to them and say, we have to send a book to somebody. Okay, so I'm here to talk about what's new in Ruby 4, which is coming out 1 week from today on December 25th, as is sort of habit. Ruby's been doing this for about a decade now. And let's go through it. We'll also talk about what is new in Ruby Gems 4, which came out a couple of weeks ago. And one of the reasons that we're also going to be talking about Ruby Gems, I should say, actually, let me introduce myself. I'm Noel Rappin. I work at Chime, where I run Ruby developer experience, and also in some of my spare time, I write books for Pragmatic mostly. So hi, everybody. So we're talking about Ruby and Ruby Gems in part because there's not a whole lot of big changes in Ruby 4, which would make this a very short talk, except that I'm going to find ways to keep your attention for just a few minutes. The reason that it is Ruby 4 and not like Ruby 3.5 is specifically that this is Ruby's 30th anniversary of the first release of Ruby, and Mats wants to celebrate it with a major version bump. I guess fair enough. That's what we're doing. So this is Ruby 4. There's some big performance improvements behind the scenes. Aaron Patterson just posted on social media that object allocation should be 2 to 3 times faster, creating new memory. What that's going to be in terms of overall performance, not sure. There are some other small changes. I would guess that we are sort of in line with the 10 to 15 to 20% performance improvement that the last couple versions have been getting. That seems to be the goal that they're trying to hit every year. There's a small syntax change that is nice, friendly here. In Ruby 4, binary Boolean operators can now sit at the front of a line and continue the line above them, the way that the dot operator can for messages and the way that normal binary operators can't. So you can see here on the slide, in Ruby 3.4, you had to put those at the end of a line, and in Ruby 4.0, you can line them up at the beginning of a slide. This is true for the pipe operator. It's true for the double and operator. It is also true for the written out word versions of and or. Is this a huge thing? No. Is the code on the right a little bit clearer? It is to me. I would probably use this and forget that it was a new thing. I probably try to do this once or twice a month and have it not work, just sort of accidentally. So that's like the only consequential syntax change. There's a minor change to how splat operators are being processed that you will probably never ever run into. The bigger changes in this version are are in the library, and 2 in particular that I want to call out. The first one is ractors. Ractors are multi-threading in Ruby. Do people know what ractors are in the audience? Yes, no, maybe, as if I could tell from that. Some people raised their hand and other people didn't. So ractors are a library that was introduced a couple of versions ago. The introduction was, Ruby's done this a couple of times recently where a new feature gets added. It's not fully baked. By the time it becomes fully baked, it's not a new feature anymore and people kind of forget it's there. This is maybe the year that ractors become fully baked. They are, according to some documentation, one of the release candidates. They are closer to leaving experimental status. Right now, if you in Ruby 3.4, if you use them, you get a warning in their terminal that says that they're experimental. That may or may not be going away this time around. I'm actually not sure how what the final is going to final version, where they're going to land with the final version. What Reactors do is work around a limitation in Ruby multi-threading. If you use multi-threading in Ruby, you're probably aware that Ruby has a global interpreter lock that enables only one piece of code to be running the Ruby interpreter at a time. So you can't really have true like parallel processing in Ruby. All you can do is block when something goes into I/O and have a scheduler pass that over to another Ruby-based thread, which is not true parallelism, but it obviously can sometimes be very useful. Reactors are a Ruby mechanism for parallel execution. In fact, when Reactors came out, they built up a tremendous amount of infrastructure within Ruby just to support them. Reactors don't have a global interpreter lock. There's a lock per Reactor. This is essentially breaking a huge invariant of how Ruby was supposed to work. So there's just a ton of infrastructure behind this. The main thing that makes this work is that a Reactor, when you define it, is isolated. It's isolated from other Reactors, and it is also isolated from the scope in which it's declared in. So it does not have visibility into things that it would look like it might have visibility into. It only can see values that are passed to it, and values that are passed to it have to be what the Ruby docs call shareable, which mostly means that they're either other Reactors or they're frozen variables. And that's to prevent data corruption between things that are running in parallel. So a Reactor is on the page. It is basically a block of code. It is usually a loop that then can either block waiting for input or block waiting to send output. Whichever seems to serve the business logic. And what has changed in this version of Ruby is that they've cleaned up the API for communication between Reactors, which previously was a little bit confusing, and is now, I think, a little bit more consistent, self-consistent. Still takes a little bit of getting used to. And in particular, what's added is this concept of a port, Reactor port, which is a new object, and it is the mechanism by which Reactors communicate. So Reactors now, there used to be a couple of different ways that Reactors pass data to each other. All of that now goes through this Reactor port class, this abstraction. And so you can receive data. Every Reactor has a default port, and then it can create other ports sort of arbitrarily. And you can receive data either by calling the global class method Reactor receive, which receives data, waits for data to come in on the default port of the current Reactor, or you can receive on a specific port. Similarly, you can send stuff to a specific Reactor, which goes to that Reactor's default port, or you can send stuff to a specific port. The method is send. It's aliased with the shovel operator because the shovel operator, in my opinion, makes it a little bit clearer in what direction the data is moving. So let's look at some code here. I hope you can see this. I can't really adjust it. This is a basic Reactor example. This actually would have been, I think, mostly good in 3.4. The initialize method here is creating a new Reactor right up top, and is putting it in an instance variable called receiver. And at that point, the Reactor goes off and runs its block in parallel. So the initialize method finishes up, the Reactor goes off and runs in parallel. Inside that block, it executes that code. It gets to the while statement where it sits on Reactor receive, waiting for new data. It just holds there waiting for data to come in. You can kind of think of a Reactor as a room with many, many doors that just waits for data to come in on the doors, do something with it, and potentially pushes the data out another door to another Reactor. The other Reactor is defined in this start method. It takes the receiver as an argument. So Reactors can take an arbitrary number of arguments. They immediately pass them off to the block. And that is how Reactors communicate with each other. You pass one Reactor to the other one, and then it knows about it. It can send data to it. So the start Reactor takes in the receiver. It's passed immediately to the block, and then it sends it data. Every time it sends it data, the receiver reactor unblocks, does the body of that while loop, gets back to the top of the while loop and blocks again until finally it gets sent nil, which drops it out of the while loop, ends the reactor, and then at the bottom of the start method, outside the other reactor, it waits, it calls receiver.value, which, as with other threading things in Ruby, will wait for that value will wait for the receiving reactor to finish up to have the value and take you out of parallel mode and into regular mode. I hope that's clear. It is very hard for me to see from the audience how people are reacting to this. If there are questions about it, I can take questions. I can take questions at the end. So that's how reactors, or I guess if people have questions now, you can shout them out, I suppose. I may or may not be able to hear you. That's how reactors, you also have the ability to create specific multiple ports. So this is a piece of code. This is actually based on something that Aaron Patterson showed me. Aaron did a lot of work on reactors this year. Actually, if you look at his Rails World keynote this year, he talked both about the reactor work and about the object allocation speedup. So he goes into that in a little bit more detail. But this is based on code that is being used, at least experimentally, in mini tests to parallelize work. So you have two sets of things, sets of things that you might need to worry about, which is worker queues and actual work for them to do. What you want to do is you want to have a manager that waits for work and waits for workers. And when it has both of them, it sends the work to the worker and then waits again. So here is one way to do this in Ruby reactors in Ruby 4 with the ports. This initialize method is doing something that looks a little bit unusual. It is immediately creating this temporary port, that second line there. And the only purpose of this port is to get passed into the manager reactor so that the manager reactor can make its own port visible to the outside. Because reactors are isolated, if the reactor declares its own new non-default port, nobody can see it. It has to have a way to get it to the outside world. This is one way to do it. This is the way that I was shown how to do it. I expect that as patterns become more common, there'll be other abstractions. But in this case, what's happening here is the temporary port is getting created, and then in the line after that, a reactor is being created and assigned to the manager instance variable. At that point, we split off in parallel. The reactor goes off and does the block, and the rest of the initialize method continues on. At the end of the block, the rest of the method sits on that line where it is defining the instance variable queue. It is waiting. Temporary port receive is a wait. It's a block, and the port is waiting for something to happen. Something happens pretty quickly, though, because the new reactor starts up. It immediately creates that non-instance variable queue as its own port, and it passes that port out to the temporary port. That unblocks the initialize method and sets that port, which is part of the manager reactor, to the instance variable queue. At that point, the manager reactor is sitting in a loop. The top of the loop, it is waiting for work. When it gets work it is waiting for work on that queue, and it is waiting for workers on its default port. That's class method reactor receive. So if it gets work, it goes into the while loop where it immediately waits for a worker. Once it gets a worker, it sends the work to the worker and goes back to the top of while loop where it waits again. At some point, it gets past nil, breaks out of the while loop, sends nil to all of the individual reactors, which ends them, all of the individual reactors on the queue that are workers. That line may not be actually correct, which breaks them out of their blocks. It works like this. So now here's the same kind of start method. The start method is creating its own reactor with the manager as an argument. The manager gets immediately passed to the block. The worker immediately starts a loop. It passes itself to the manager. That will passes itself to the manager's default queue. That will unbreak the manager when it was waiting for a worker. And then it immediately waits for the reactor to pass it some work. Once it gets work, it breaks out if that work is nil. Otherwise, it does whatever it's going to do. It does something. And then there's also a queue method, which takes work and passes that work to the queue port. So both of those things unblock the parent, the manager Ractor, and allows it to pass off work to the workers. So you would create the class, and then you would start up a whole set of worker Ractors, and as they did their work, they would enqueue themselves, get the work, do the work, and then enqueue themselves again until you run out of work. And this is enabled because now you can have two different ports coming into the same Ractor. So I hope that made sense. It is a little hard for me to tell, and it is kind of convoluted and a little not intuitive.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe we can wait for questions in this section, because I know
we can wait for questions at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe questions in this section. Anybody brave enough? All hands are suddenly up.
With it still being experimental, I guess this is a difficult question to answer, but how wise or unwise would it be to start using Ractors in Ruby 4?
I would wait and see where it comes in the final version. Aaron was real optimistic in Rails world that they had made some significant performance improvements that would make it really reasonable. I think it's an interesting abstraction, and I would like to see it be able to be tried, but it is a little bit hard for me to know exactly what the Ruby core team thinks about it at the moment. I'm hopeful that this will be something that will be sort of greenlit or blessed in the next version, but I'm not 100% sure that it's going to be. It's getting very close, though.
Any other questions? I had the same question, but to summarize, Ruby 4.0, maybe Ractor's production ready?
Hopefully Ractor's production ready. I will say that there was nothing really keeping them. They weren't. I don't know that they were necessarily buggy before. They were just not as performant as they liked. And I think that they've made some moves toward getting them more performant. So I don't know. I think it's probably going to at least be worth experimenting with. Hopefully it will get fully released. It's possible they've lifted the warning message already. I just haven't had a chance to look at the most recent release candidate, the one that came out today.
Yeah, I kind of have a high-level question. So I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of my understanding of Ractors is that, again, we're trying to kind of distribute work across cores, right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it enables you to take advantage of cores in a way that non-Ractor Ruby doesn't let you.
Yeah, and if you have any kind of cool examples of what kind of work from real production systems would be best,
I mean, this code sample is sort of from a real production system, or at least this code sample is based on something that they're going to put into Minitest to parallelize Minitest. And presumably at some point, somebody will do something similar for our spec. But that's the kind of thing that this could be used for. But I think anything that you're currently doing with async or with concurrent Ruby could in theory be done faster with Ractors. There's some practical things to work out, especially if you're sharing data between your different threads or fibers. But that's the idea. The idea is that this will be a better abstraction for doing multi-threaded stuff in Ruby.
So one question that I have is, because of mutable state and class state, for instance, and things like active record, is this going to be practical to use anytime soon for, Rails core libraries where we have, active record going and populating, database schemas, things like that, and then splitting that off into a Ractor?
That's a really good question. I think that the answer is yes, but you're going to have to make sure that you're aware of the Ractor limitations. The main limitation is that any data that you send to the Ractor, any data that the Ractor uses, you have to send to the Ractor. I don't think there's anything preventing the Ractor from then making a database, saving information to the database, but I don't think you could probably pass a full-on active record object to the Ractor, I think it would be considered unshareable, or at the very least, it would copy it before sending it. But that's not all that different from the best practice for dealing with background jobs, where the best practice is you pass around IDs and the background job goes back to the database and gets the data. I suspect it'll wind up looking like that.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Thank you, Noel. I think we can move on to.
Okay, great. Yeah, if there are more questions, we'll stop again in a little bit. The other high level, not quite ready for prime time thing that is coming in Ruby 4 is this concept of a Ruby box. This proposal has been kicking around for a while. It used to be called namespaces. And I have to admit that it actually does something completely different than I originally thought it did when I heard that Ruby was going to be adding namespaces. I was expecting something like a module that you couldn't import that would just be a namespace. That's not really what this is. What a box is, it is kind of an isolated global namespace. This is another attempt. I kind of see this as another attempt to do things in Ruby that are limiting the scope of things that are otherwise potentially global, the way that Ractors kind of do, the way that refinements kind of do. So the way that they work, you can create a box with Ruby box new. I don't believe it takes arguments, or at least it can be called without arguments. And then inside the box can basically do two things. You can require code into the box with require relative or require or load. And that code gets like loaded into that box, required into that box, just as it would if you had the require at the top level, except that the code is now inside the box. And then classes, top level constants, and whatever, the box can use the scope resolution operator to access code, to access classes, constants, namespace, essentially, that are inside the box. So assuming that this square file defines a square class, you can then access that as box square, box scope resolution operator square, and it works normally. But you can have an arbitrary number of these boxes that have different code required into them. In theory, you could have the same gem required, different versions of the same gem required in different boxes, although I don't think I would recommend that. So that's how boxes work. The question that I've been trying to chase down is like, why do boxes do this? And I have to admit, I'm not completely sure that I understand it. One thing that I originally thought of was that this could be like refinements. This could be a way to limit the scope of a monkey patch. And that turns out to be like not quite as true as I want it to be. So I want to show a little bit of code here. This is just a plain old normal Ruby piece of code. I'm only showing this because we're going to require this file in a bunch of different places. Here I'm monkey patching string to add a method called yell. And then I'm creating a class called yeller that uses that. It has a string and it calls yell on that. So in normal regular Ruby, if this code is imported, this code works fine. But if you don't load the monkey patch, I think it doesn't work. Obviously, if you just have a regular strings can't yell, this fails. If you go completely inside the box and you create the box, you require this patch file inside the box, and then you call that yeller class from the box and call yell method on that, this works. This will call the yell method of the yeller, which falls back to the yell method of string, which exists in the monkey patch. So that works. It doesn't do anything we can't already necessarily do, but it does work. It sort of allows us to have some scope of this monkey patch that is not global. But where it gets a little bit weird is if you try to use the string directly. So if you create the same patched box, you require in the same file, but instead of calling that yeller class, you actually just create a new string and try to yell on that string. This actually fails. And that's the part that kind of puzzles me. What happens here is that for built-in classes that you don't have to require, built-in classes can only use monkey patches inside the same box as the patch. In fact, as far as Ruby is concerned, the patched string class and like your top level string class are the same class. Even though, like if you did an equals equals on them, it would, I believe, be true. Even though one of them is defined inside the box and has inside the box this monkey patch. I do not know why this is done exactly. I suspect that it was done to prevent against upending various kinds of like optimizations that the built-in classes have in the Ruby interpreter, but I don't know that for sure. And ultimately, like, I don't know, I found that confusing as I was trying to figure out how these work, but it's pretty clear in the documentation that this is how they are intended to work. That built-in classes are intended to be treated a little bit differently than regular classes, and they don't have you can't use boxes for this kind of thing. So what would you use them for? A thing that I thought of, I don't know whether this is an intended use or not, a thing that I thought of here is the potential where you might have multiple different files that essentially define the same constants. So in this case, I have a box called US units and UK units. They each require one would imagine, parallel unit definition files, so that those two files might define the same top level constants, but I've required them into different boxes. And then I can pass the box to an object and then access the constants through the box, and the Chicago box will get the US units because that's what was loaded into the Chicago box. The London box will get the UK units because that was what was loaded into the UK box. And this code actually does work. There are other ways to do this in Ruby that are, you can probably think of a couple of other ways to more or less do this in Ruby that may or may not be easier. But this is one thing that you can use boxes for, is to have like isolated namespaces of constants that you might pass around. But the other thing is that boxes are still experimental. You actually need to turn them on with an environment variable when you load Ruby. There's like a Ruby underscore box environment variable that has to be set to 1 in order to load Ruby, at least as of the release candidate 2, and I don't think it changed in the release candidate that was released today. These are experimental in that a lot of stuff, at least again, as of the RC2, some stuff didn't work with boxes turned on. And I don't know what the priority level is to make that work. And I have not tried the RC3 yet. Again, the one that came out today, I haven't had a chance yet. So, okay, this is a good place to sort of hold if anybody has any questions about boxes, including why. I would consider a reasonable question. I don't know that I have an answer, but it's a reasonable question.
Reasonable question.
So,
reasonable question. Yeah. Justin actually raised his hand. So
I actually don't know if this is a reasonable question, but my understanding of why boxes was for Ruby Gems namespaces in the future, which who knows when that's coming, but does that make sense?
I mean, that's possible. I've heard it suggested that this could be used to namespace gems into different places so that you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about like name collisions. This seems like a lot more power than you would need to do that necessarily. Maybe, I don't know. It does seem like that's the goal. I will say that Matt has said for some time that this feature would be the distinction between Ruby 3 and Ruby 4. I think that people just thought it would be a little bit more fleshed out by the time it got in. But this has been on the radar for a while. Other questions? Cool. Anyway, there's a couple of other layers. Also in the not production ready, there's ZJIT, which is YJIT, but one more, I guess. This is a completely new just-in-time compiler. It has a different way of chunking the code that it is compiling that they believe will be more robust and easier to maintain and extend over time. It is not faster than YJIT yet. They expect it to be faster than YJIT for the 4.1 for the 4.1 release next year. In the meantime, it is there and you can experiment with it if you want, but it's not considered production ready yet. The RJIT, the older JIT, has been removed from Ruby 4 for this one. I don't think anybody was really using it anyway. There is now a top-level Ruby module, and this was actually reserved in the last version of Ruby. It's actually used in this version of Ruby. A lot of global constants that began capital all caps Ruby underscore have been duplicated into Ruby : the version constants, all the different version constants, and a couple of things like that. Presumably, eventually, the older versions will go away, but I think that they'll stick around for a little while before that happens. There's a handful of new standard methods. The one that was maybe most interesting to me that you might be most likely to use is array rfind. I think they also added an array find. Array find existed, but they added an optimization for arrays that's faster than the enumerable implementation. There's a couple of things. They always add a couple dozen standard library methods, most of which are kind of edge casey or very, very niche. You can see the documentation for that list. They also did some juggling of core classes. Set is now a core. Set and path name are now both been promoted, I guess, to core class. They don't need to be required anymore. CGI was pulled from the default library. It is now a separate gem, except for the CGI escape and unescape stuff, which is still there. And then sorted set is no longer part of set or doesn't come in with set. It's a separate gem, and it's been you have to require it as a separate gem. That's most of that. There are a couple of others too, I think. So those are the minor changes. And then let me sort of go over the changes in Ruby Gems and Bundler. And then we can take some questions again at the end if there are any. The first question, I guess, about Ruby Gems 4 and Bundler 4 is, wait, wasn't Bundler 2.7? Didn't Bundler jump from 2.7 to 4.0? Yes, it did. The expectation now is that Ruby Gems and Bundler will release in tandem. I'm not 100% sure. I think this means that they will release patches, like there'll be one patch release and it will be Ruby Gems 401 and Bundler 401. It's possible that they may not stick to that completely strictly, but my understanding is that they both released 401 versions, and that's my understanding is that they'll continue to do that. So that's one of the reasons for the major version bump in Ruby Gems. Bundler actually does have some breaking changes that would justify a major version jump. Ruby Gems didn't change all that much. The -J flag for parallelism is now on by default. That's probably the most consequential thing. A couple of command line commands that you probably weren't using have been removed, probably because nobody was using them. Bundler has a few serious changes that will mess with you if you are relying on your Bundler muscle memory. You can, if you're still running Bundler 2.7, you can test all the Bundler 4 features by setting this environment variable bundle simulate version. That will give you all the Bundle 4 features in Bundler 2.7. You can test them and then see whether what you need to change to upgrade or not. One of the big changes is if you just type in Bundler at the command line to mean bundle install, that doesn't work anymore. I saw a documentation piece somewhere that said you just got a deprecation message. In my experience running this, it actually just prints a help message. It prints the help message and tells you to run bundle install to get bundle install. So this shortcut has been removed, presumably for consistency. A bunch of bundle install had a number of flags to its command line arguments that created like temporary state that set the state of bundler until they were unstated, until they were changed. Like --with, --without, there are like a half dozen or so of them. They have all been removed. The functionality has not been removed. Just getting it from the bundle install command line has been removed. You have to set them now through bundle config set or bundle config unset. This was done for consistency to make bundler more replicable and easier to predict. Previously, because of sort of the weird temporary state that those set up, you could have behavior change from seemingly innocuous additional calls to bundler in the middle of your script, and that doesn't. This change is designed to prevent that from happening. Similarly, bundle install --bin stubs is now just bundle bin stubs. Again, I think they're just trying to clean up the CLI quite a bit. Bundle update as a shortcut for bundle update --all. This one actually does give a deprecating warning and work, but eventually at some point, bundle update without an argument will also be deprecated. And if you want to update the entire gem file, you need to do --all. Again, just trying to make the CLI like more explicit, I think. Bundle inject has been renamed bundle add to more explicitly match what it's doing. I wasn't really using that, so I guess fine. Another big change is that the gem file, the gem.lock files now by default include checksums for all of the gems. This is something that's been available in Bundler for about a year or so, but it was opt-in and now it is opt-out. Essentially what it means is that for the .gem file for each gem, your lock file gets the MD5 hash of that gem. It's just a bunch of them placed at the bottom of your lock file. And the idea here is that if you download a gem that claims to be the same version, but it doesn't match the checksum, then Bundler assumes that it's a malicious sort of man-in-the-middle attack and blocks you. So it's a security precaution. I've been using these opt-in on one of my projects for a while. They work fine. They don't get in the way. It just is, just a bunch of lines in the lock file. Another thing that you probably shouldn't have been doing before and now you can't do is that Bundler no longer supports multiple top-level sources at the top of a gem file. You can only have one top-level source, and alternate sources have to be declared in the block argument form or per gem. So in Bundler 2.7, you could do this top thing where you had two top-level sources and the gems did not specify which source they belonged to. In that case, Bundler would search the first one. If it didn't find it, it would go to the second one. The main problem in this is that it was not predictable. It was dependent on the order in which the sources were declared. If you added something to a source that wasn't expected, you could wind up getting a version of the gem you didn't expect. So in Bundler 4.0, there is one main source. And if you declare, this is what you should have been doing all along. If you declared a second source for internal gems or whatever coming from another gem server, you have to do it. You now have to do it with the block form or specify them with the source argument gem by gem. You also used to be able to have path or git sources at the top level. Those can't be at the top level anymore. Again, they have to be declared in the block form or gem by gem. Another big change is that Bundler, the default for Bundler is now that it caches the gems that are in use in a .bundle directory in your project file. It is doing this again to be more predictable and to have more isolation between different projects rather than have every project depend on a common gem store where you might have potentially two different gems with the same name from two different sources. Bundler now by default stores local gems in .bundle, and it does some accounting to make sure that it's not wasting a whole bunch of disk space. You can also change this behavior, but that's where Bundle now looks. It potentially it might speed things up a bit. It's definitely there to promote isolation between different projects. And finally, like a lot of API behavior around the Bundle environment has been cleaned up. Most of this stuff was things that people weren't really using. If you're using Bundle in a lot of like scripts for like continuous integration or deployment or stuff like this may affect some of the scripts that you're running. But if you're just sort of running it normally as a developer doing like the most typical Bundler stuff, it probably shouldn't affect you. And that's pretty much it. I'm also very excited to announce that as of today, the sixth edition of the Pickaxe book, Programming Ruby 4, is available in, I guess, extremely early beta from Pragmatic. You can buy it. It was written against the release candidate 2, or at least it was most recently tested against it. We may have a version that comes out against the release candidate 3. We may wait the week and have a version come out against the final version, against the Ruby 4.0 final, and then another beta probably in January or February as people get a chance to look at this and we get a chance to play with the new features a little bit more. In addition to the stuff that we've talked about of the Ruby 4 changes, we changed the threading chapter quite a bit. In addition to the new Ractor stuff, it also talks about the async and concurrent Ruby gems. The chapter on types now includes a section on the literal gem. And there's a bunch of other cleanups and sort of minor things sprinkled throughout. I hope that people buy it because I really like doing it. And that's it. Here is the QR code again. For some possibility of winning a free ebook, either this or a different Prag ebook, I suppose, or a gift card to the Pragmatic Swag store. So you can, if you haven't gotten it yet, you can take that. That is my main run. If people have more questions about Ruby 4 or the state of Ruby going forward, now would be the time. So thanks for coming out on, I don't know, it's cold here. I don't know what it's like there. It's rainy and gross here. But thanks for coming out. I hope this was useful. You can find me online at noelrappin.com or on Blue Sky at noelrappin.com. Love to hear from you. And are there any other questions?
Thank you, Noel. Fantastic talk. By the way, I checked the merch store of Pragmatic Programmers. It's very cool. Very cool stuff. So questions. Okay, go ahead. No,
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Prepare.
What?
Don't worry, it's a very easy question. So with the CLI updates to make bundle installs easier without using the install command, would you be worried about supply attacks in terms of malicious packages and it being easier to install without the extra syntax?
I'm sorry, what was the... I either didn't hear the beginning or I didn't hear the question.
Oh, so in one of your slides, you mentioned you were changing the bundle install to omit the install command.
Like this?
Yeah. So because it's less explicit that it's an install, are you worried that this would increase the prevalence of software supply attacks?
I mean, the CLI, the functionality of the CLI hasn't changed. If you just type in, if you go into Ruby, if you go into Bundler with Bundler 4.0 and you just type in bundle, it will give you a help message. Whereas usually, you know, I'm used to using that as a shortcut for bundle install. Yeah. I don't know. I think that the thing that's going to protect against attacks is going to be the gem spec, the hash stuff in the lock file. I think the CLI changes are mostly not so much about security; they're about predictability from people who are using bundler inside CI scripts or deploy scripts or something like that.
What I mean is, for example, instead of let's say someone creates a malicious package called uodate, and then for someone to install it accidentally using bundle install uodate, it's very less likely than someone typing bundle uodate for update, but then having type.
I mean, that's not quite what those commands do right now, but yeah, I mean, making it longer, I assume does minimize the chance that somebody's going to do it accidentally. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. More questions? No, we're good. We're good. We're good. Right. Thanks, Noel. Thank you for coming to in remote form, coming to talk. Yeah. And have a nice. Thank you for.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Thanks, Irina. And I'm going to drop off now.
Yeah, I want to talk about something. I wonder how many people can guess what the talk is about. Maybe not that many. Yeah, I don't know if you like buns. Anyway, so by the way, thanks to my colleague Vladimir Dementiev, who helped with the slides a lot and with the actual test inside. But yeah, so this is again Christmas time. You're all thinking about which presents to get. I guess. What else? About the cold trees. Do you have this? About traveling? Yeah. That's not what you're supposed to be thinking about, right? It's really time to think if you were a good person, if you behaved, right? And so I want us to think about this right now. And specifically, this person, well, any resemblance to an actual person is completely accidental, is asking you, okay, confess your sins against the Railsway, right? Have you sinned against the Railsway? Anybody? Okay, let's, seriously, everybody's like, no, we did not. I don't believe it. Okay, what's the biggest sin against the Railsway this year? JavaScript, yeah, okay. Wait. Okay. What else? Predictable. Okay. What else? Yeah. Okay. I think not everybody will agree, but yeah. Well, I think in particular, there's one scene that we've been like thinking about a lot this year, and a bit before that, and this is going against the no build. Yeah. So this going against the no build. This is what you're not supposed to do officially in vanilla Rails today. But let's talk about this, right? Anybody not using no build? And again, no build is import maps again. Folks, remember, no build, nothing, no build tool. Okay. Be honest. So how do we get there? So first, it starts like that, right? Our server is serving HTML to the person, right? To the client directly. It's all cool. But then, yeah, people complain, this is not interactive enough. And what do we do next? We say, fine, we're going to serve you the ingredients. We're going to serve the ingredients to the client. The browser is kind of like preparing this interactive dish. Of course, it's too slow. What happens next is, we're kind of preparing the server's preparing the half-baked HTML. Then the client is hydrating it, right? Kind of like that's what's expected today. Kind of like modern day front end performance optimized kind of thing, where the server is rendering HTML, serving it to the client is kind of like re-rendering it, hydrating. And of course, in this year we have a kind of like a new take on this with inertia. So we are kind of like simplifying the stack in some sense with Rails inertia Vite as a build tool and React. But you know what else we need here? We need JavaScript runtime. I think this is actually the biggest thing. And when you realize, oh yeah, I also need a JavaScript runtime, right? Why do you need this? You need this for a bunch of stuff. You need to just to kind of like compile React assets and render HTML from modern JavaScript stack. Also, you need a long running, like a whole process for server-side rendering, like a whole Node.js long-lived process that is going to be continuously rendering HTML and returning it back to Rails. Rails then serves it, right? So this is when it gets like really scary in some sense. Also, yeah, sorry, Marco. Also, congrats with the Rails Luminary Award. Yeah, but you also need, seriously, congrats to Marco for getting the Rails Luminary. Yeah. Okay, yay. You heard. So and also we need JavaScript runtime for tooling, for front-end tooling, linters and whatnot, like a storybook, all of that stuff. The problem is you end up with a Rails server and kind of like Node.js server, right? So you rely on Node.js running, and you're kind of like your Node.js running locally, Node.js running on CI, Node.js running on servers, kind of like in Docker containers, kind of like everywhere. And you kind of have to maintain this dependency. And it's not pretty because you don't want to maintain Node.js dependency. So one of my colleagues built this. It's a bundle bun. It's a Ruby gem that delivers a JavaScript runtime as a binary. And the JavaScript runtime is called bun. So bundle.ban is just kind of like packaging that binary as a Ruby gem and providing all the glue code for all of your tools to discover that binary. So basically, you don't need to have kind of like pure Node.js running. You only have a gem, and the gem is versioned alongside ban. But you don't need to think about this. I'll show you how it works in a sec. It's a kind of a demo. It's not a real demo. So we have this real Rails product that we tried migrating to bundle.ban. And what is it? It's our Rails application that we use for a managed version of any cable. So you can go kind of like create your own any cable and we deploy it on fly, etc. So this is a Rails application with real kind of users and all. And yeah, so Vladimir just removed Node.js last night from that code base and kind of like replaced it with ban. So you can see that basically all the Node.js dependency on Node.js is gone. So you kind of don't have to have Node.js anymore. And the kind of like you only have to have Ruby in your system. And everything else is just a binary that is kind of just works, which is beautiful. Also, it's almost twice faster. I think it's, well, obviously it's because ban is not a Node.js wrapper. It's a whole standalone JavaScript runtime written by, actually they were just acquired by Anthropic, am I right? By Anthropic. Yeah, so it's a very cool JavaScript runtime. It's fast, it's like efficient, it supports the whole tooling. So yeah, we now have it as a kind of like nice gem. Yeah, you can check it here on GitHub, and yep, these are my contacts, and yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky as well, and LinkedIn, and anywhere you want. Thank you. Okay, who's brave enough to do the open mic? Come on. Okay, we'll join in a bit, but you guys go. Catherine, and then you guys. Okay.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine. I work at Apple. I feel like for months I've been saying I should be getting Rex to hire soon, and it happened. Yay! So we got 3 Recs, 1 in San Francisco, 1 in Seattle, and those are both senior plus Ruby on Rails engineer roles. So come talk to me. I've got the job posting. Great timing too, right before we go on holiday break, but whatever. We also have a solutions engineer role. He asked me, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, basically like support, sales, stuff. That's in Cupertino. So come talk to me. Awesome. Yes, 2 Rails roles. That is a tongue twister. 1 in San Francisco, 1 in Seattle, if you have Seattle friends. All right.
I'm gonna try to screen share. Hey, oh, I said I'm trying to screen share. Okay, cool. Hi, my name is Miles Georgi. I made a software framework called Fubara that I've talked about at a few of these. Something that dawned on me is that you could use Fubara as a drop-in service objects layer if you just want to commit one sin against the Rails way instead of all of them like I have. You could just use it as a service object layer, and I want to show how that would work. I have a Rails app running here. It's just a demo app. And I'm going to hit this, and it's a demo app that's just giving a very basic JSON API. Here it's just giving hello world. There's a couple behaviors here. I can say I can use a custom salutation. So this will say hi world, and then there's some validations. If I hiss, this is considered a threatening salutation. It'll give you a 422. So looking at the code for this is the create action for this. And so here we have Rails code. I don't know if this would count as the Rails way or not, but it's close enough. So we have hello here is the default world here, and here's our hiss validation. There's a different validation here, but we can skip that. So I made a code generator that can let you really quickly wire this up with foobar if you wanted to. So that is located here. Fubify Rails app. Oops. So I'll run this. I actually do have to restart the server to do this. Oh, and this is actually just the help output. There's some options here, like if you actually wanted to use foobar the way it's meant to be used, but I'm going to skip all those options, and I'm just going to run this by changing help to G. And I think I can start the server once it's linting. Okay. All right, so same behavior as before. This still works. I'm going to show how I would use, oh, you know what I ought to do is I should show some of the code. Let's do that. So the code this output was actually pretty simple. Just adds foobar to the gem file, and it adds a commands directory to the load path under app. And also, if you don't tell it not to include a sample command, it includes a sample command, which happens to do exactly what that other controller action did for convenience. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this using it as a service object command. Create greetings. Oops. I think I have to symbolize keys. I'm not sure. I'm not going to take a chance. I can get an outcome from running our command, and our command is called construct greeting inputs, and then can do this. It luckily auto-completes for me to save time. And I don't think I actually have to restart Rails for this one. Oh, I think I do. Or there's actually a legit bug. Hopefully it's not a legit bug. Oh, it's a legit bug. Well, I won't spend a bunch of time debugging this, or I probably shouldn't. Huh, that's a bummer. Does anyone happen to see the bug? Greeting, oh, who caught that? That was amazing. Hopefully that's it. Okay, so cool. So this is a little bit longer. You can't see the other one because it scrolled off the page due to the bug that someone just visually debugged. But now I'm getting this output through running the command as if it were, part of a service object layer. And that works just fine. I guess really quickly I could demo what happens if I actually do use it the way it's meant to be used. Command connector. If I run this, I'll get a Rails command. Use Rails command connector. So I do have to restart this for this. Okay. And then if I look at what this has done, this will add, it adds the Rails command connector to the gem file, and then it sets up a route to expose that command. It says I can hit run or help construct greeting, so I'll go do that. So, this is already auto-completed, so this is further along in the demo. So if I can go to help, I can see this command here, and I can actually run it. So you could do this if you wanted to go full RPC and violate more of commit more sins against the Rails way. So yeah, and if I hiss, I'll get the error. And yeah, there's something I was supposed to remember to say, which is me and Glauber, who might talk, I'm not sure, but we're in a group with someone named Bill who's organizing a meetup in Thailand, and he asked me to mention it. So if anyone's just like one excuse away from going to Thailand in the near future, there's your excuse. When is it? I don't know. I think it's in about a month. Yeah, I think it's in Bangkok. You okay? So yeah, so maybe you could. Oh, and I guess I also have a QR code to the repo. I think this goes to the repo. It's either that or the website. And that's it. Thanks.
And you know what? Just one more treat for tonight. From Glauber. Did I do Glauber?
Correct.
So what does it mean again?
The believer.
The believer.
Yeah,
the
in
believer.
German.
Very Noel-esque.
Let me see. I think it's sharing, right? Yeah.
Now screen. Now start screen sharing.
Okay. So, my name is Glauber, and I started my career in business. And a bit what I'm going to talk about here is the interface between the developer world that I just recently discovered in the last 3 years with Rails, that is my passion, and the business. So I built this open source tool called Flukebase to track different projects. And with a simple click, I can just change the project I'm viewing, or initiate like tracking on a milestone within a project. And there are many possibilities as well, like to bring people on board so they can also initiate their own milestones. And this is how like a project looks like. You can see like a GitHub activity as well, and the time logs. And here is a little bit about the productivity for each member in the project. And you can also discover new people. So let's say you are not working. What can you do? You can come and build your own and bring your friend to the team, and you guys start something, even if it doesn't succeed. But if you do it many times, you will de-risk your risk, in my opinion. Sorry for the random seed data here. There is also a chat feature. And this is basically what I wanted you guys to see. Like, if you guys want to contribute to this, like, there are many things we can do. Even what Justin showed us could be included here eventually. And I wish you all a good year ahead as well. Okay? Thank you.
Time to begin, because it's Christmas edition of SF Ruby Active Agents stuff. Can we see is that my screen? That's my screen. See code. How do I get, yeah, it's the other Justin. That guy's weird. No, this guy's weird. All right. First, shout out. Someone's not here, but they're doing good work in the community. Rhiannon just launched Ruby Around the World, which is a YouTube channel. You can check it out on that QR code. This presentation actually has QR codes today. Don't ask why my workshop didn't, but I thought we had 2 hours, so people could ask questions and search links. But what we're going to be talking about today is actually active agents, surprise, surprise, and building AI features into Basecamp open source stuffs. Do you want to make it bigly? Do you want it? I wanted to see the slides. I might skip slides, and I didn't prepare like the speaker note presentations and stuff. All right, all right. Who am I? Doesn't matter, you guys know. This is a small group. I know most of you, I think. Where'd Nelson go? Did he just go like rile up the initial speakers and leave? Okay. I've been working on ActiveAgent for about a year now. It's to compress the complexity of AI features in your Rails apps, just like Rails compresses the complexity of web application features in your web applications. I recently released V1, kind of on like the crux of SF RubyConf, though I gotta say I merged V1 into main, so the docs were launched before I released it. So there was a release candidate published, but the docs that were live were V1, and if you downloaded ActiveAgent by doing bundle add ActiveAgent, like Noel was talking about earlier, you would actually get 0.6.3, which is a little incompatible with the docs, but I digress. Like I said, doing all the things Rails did for web, but for AI features. So this is like simple web requests. We do a search, we go to the database, we create some kind of search object, inventory results in this case, and then we render a view back to the user. So again, when we're talking about action prompt, the generation providers, the tooling, streaming, and callbacks, these are all modules that are baked into ActiveAgent, but something I'm going to demo today is something that's brand new and hasn't been seen even at SF RubyConf. This is kind of just the same workflow, going over how you might do retrieval augmented generation to dynamically render a prompt to your large language model. That way you can provide additional context to the large language model in order to generate a better response. So that's cool. One of the things that I've been teasing is this question: what concerns an agent? Because there are a lot of concerns we can make for ActiveAgent, and that's kind of what I've been doing on the side. Concerns are fun. I think DHH quoted himself, quoting Claude, saying that concerns are the #1 abstraction in Ruby, best abstraction in Ruby. So when we're talking about what concerns an agent, we talk about things like context, right? What is context? It's a very ambiguous word. That's something that I'm trying to solidify a little bit here. So when we talk about prompts, we talk about the context we're putting in, we're talking about the messages, the instructions. System messages are what we call instructions. Tool messages are the responses back from your Ruby code or MCP calls that come back. Today I'm going to be demoing the Capybara Cup-Write agent that I've been talking about for a while. I don't know if anyone's actually downloaded it and tried it, but I'm going to be running it right now. And the internet was really weird just now, so hopefully it works. But this is like all of the code removed from all of the tools and the prompts that are going to be used. But you can see it can navigate, click, take screenshots, stuff like that. This is an example of the tool definition, so the tool response message that we get back. So yeah, what concerns an agent? It has context and it has tools. And the context has messages and prompts and other things. And that's something that I'm working on called Solid Agent. Not releasing it tonight, though there is some code that's probably going to get pushed to GitHub tonight if you want to check it out. But both of these applications for Writebook and Fizzy, if you want to check out either of these are my forks. Sort of a fork of Writebook. They released it on one, so it was a zip, but you can download it, and then I published it on Tons of Fun /Writebook, and then added ActiveAgent's writing assistance to it. So if you've ever used Google Docs or the writing tools features of iOS, it's like that. Same with Fizzy. This is the link to that repo. And yeah, I don't know. It's, oh, not yet. It's actually been something that I've been looking for a while, is like, what is that hello world? And I don't know if you guys knew this, but you can split screen tabs. That's kind of cool. Well, that's not the hello world of AI, but like what I've been trying to figure out is like, what is that thing where we can show like, this is some kind of object that we're trying to do something to, where we have like a title and some content and maybe some other context about the record. And if we just hit expand here, we want it to take all of that context that we have about this record including the title, talking about sign up, and whatever else we might have baked into our fizzy cards. And then we can take this, I think we can edit it here. Yeah, we can. You can copy it out if you wanted to, but since we don't really have anything there, we can just apply it into the editor. Fizzy's support for Markdown is a little different than Writebook. I actually did Writebook first, and I wanted to demo it first, but I did the split screen backwards. And anyway, this is what was being weird earlier, but let's just do SF Ruby, Luma, Intercom, and then this one has a research feature that should, yeah, that's the one that was being weird. I wonder if it's like my API key or something. Let's see. Did we do, no. Luma, Intercom, SF Ruby. It's doing something with DuckDuckGo. New features of ActiveAgent V1 is the streaming callbacks that you can use to show when tools are being used, when the process has been completed, and stream back the content, and it worked. It looks like it can't find anything though, so not a great demo of that, but if you gave it a more specific link, let's say like the actual link to the Luma event, because, oh wait, or maybe let's just say Luma doc, well, yeah, let's make it really, really easy, right? It's a demo. This is live. Let's see what it does. It's just a link now, and it's going to DuckDuckGo, of course. That makes sense. It could just visit the link directly. Now it's going to Luma. Okay, nice. Now it's extracting the main content. So again, these are all the tool calls going back to that slide that I had with the controller class with the actions. Those are those tool calls being invoked by the LLM. I built this, actually, the Writebook, before SF RubyConf, I think while I was in Japan. But I did Fizzy last week in my brother's backyard using GPT OSS running on my 3090 back at home using zero tier. It was super fun. Anyway, glad the demos sort of worked. Look, the holiday edition. Look, it worked. No, the demos worked actually pretty well. Huh, go figure. But yeah, last slide. I am open to work. So scan that. Also, just free consultation. So if you're working on a project, you just want some help as a developer one-on-one, also use the link in this QR code. Or if you're looking for a staff engineer or a consultant, yeah, I'm looking at you. Yeah. All right. That's it. Thank you. And Merry Christmas. And are we done? Oh, no, not done.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's coming. Wait a second. Question. Any questions for Justin? Yay.
Were there any questions? I was just surprised to start hearing your voice behind me. Any questions? No? You got the links? Cool. Is anyone going to check it out? I have a question. You should. It's really cool. It's actually, oh wait, one more thing I didn't show is the solid agent stuff under the hood. Do we have time for that? If you guys want to see it. The cool thing about it is all of your selections create context objects, and all of the content along with it is part of the context parameters, and all of that gets persisted in the database automatically, just with a little gem that you add. Wow, I really missed the whole, like, this is the awesome magical part that makes this Chrome, anyone remember Super Mario or Mario 64, Metal Mario? Yeah. That was my inspiration for this when I told Nano Banana to make this. Anyway, the persistence layer is actually pretty cool. So if we look at Writebook, and if we look at the last agent context, we have that Luma link as the selected topic, and the full content. Oh, I'm not sharing anymore. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm really bad at this. May I join again? Thank you, sir. All right. We're back, I think. And entire screen. Yeah, that's why I shared my entire screen. not just the slides, but the code. There's no actual live coding. But I will show you the console, which is kind of cool. Again, we didn't have any content there, but we did paste in this URL, and that was used as the context parameters that were put into. Let me get bigger. Bigger, yeah. All right. This URL was the only thing that was in the context parameters, but if you wanted to say, oh, live demo, interesting. I think it's actually might be related to Vova's tweet that he tweeted. I think it might be a streaming bug, but I'm just going to add the URL back as an example, or I don't know. Hold on. Fubara was mentioned today, so I'll add that because that's not in here. I don't think, right? Not on the schedule. Yeah. So now, if I tell it to research Fubara, it's going to do that, but it's also going to do that with the additional context of the full content of the page. So it knows to search Fubara based on the context of this document that now describes the Luma event that we're at. But all of these records are now something that can be tied into a prompt and agent management tooling platform that I've been building. And it also supports things like OpenTelemetry now in V1. Honeybadger now has native support for it, and hopefully others do too. Thank you, Josh. And now officially done. But yeah, solid agent coming soon. Very soon. I've been saying that for about a year.